Welcome back, everybody, to the Modern Farming Podcast Studio. Modern Farming is brought to you by the Green Gene Foundation, where we cultivate agricultural excellence through education every day.
We're your hosts, Chris and Tara, and together we're growing knowledge about the world that feeds us.
That's right, Tara, and we've got another episode with an educator, Englewood Elementary School in Sarasota. Her name is Veronica Grannan. She's a kindergarten teacher, but she also has a club at the school for 3rd to 5th graders. It's called the Everglades Club. And we're going to hear a little bit about her agricultural activities at the school. So welcome, Veronica. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me and inviting me to this show. My parents moved to Florida in 1980. I was 4 years old. I went to Englewood Elementary School. And then my 3 children went to Englewood Elementary School, and now I work at Englewood Elementary School. So I'm sure you can tell that I love the community that I live in. It's a small little, beach town, but, we love our community. We support each other in our community. We saw that a lot after the hurricanes when people just came together. Anytime there's a need, people just jump in to help each other. I've worked with kids my whole life. I became a social worker. Worked for the Department of Children and Families as a foster care counselor, worked for Big Brothers Big Sisters as a case manager, and then I had the privilege of being a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and then worked in my church nursery, was the head of the nursery, and did vacation Bible school, Sunday school, always children. Love having children around. And then when Natalie, my youngest, went to kindergarten, I couldn't bear the thought of going back home to an empty house. So I worked in the cafeteria and did that for 3 years. So I was a substitute teacher for 6 years. I officially became a teacher for 7 years. I've been a kindergarten teacher, and it's a very hard job, but I absolutely have loved doing it. While I was a stay-at-home mom, I had a friend named Melissa, and we would do parks together and community events together. And one day we were at the Englewood Farmers Market, and we were talking about how I had done summer camps and we would love to start a summer camp. And she was a scientist, the type of person who could walk through any park and tell you exactly what plant, what insect, what you were looking at, and so much knowledge. And we decided we would start this camp, and it was going to be science, nature, and then self-esteem and leadership and mentorship and things like that. So we did that for 3 summers. It was pure magic. In Lemon Bay Park, we had a lot of community support. We were fully funded by the community. Super cool. Flash forward, now some of those kids are actually leading like their environmental clubs at their school, and we've been able to see how some of that has made an impact. But we were ready to take it on the road. We were going to grow it and expand it, and Melissa got terminal brain cancer, and she ended up passing away. So that was a 3-year cancer journey, and we put the camp on hold. And then when she passed away, I put it in a box and, didn't pick it up until this summer. So I went to the Everglades Foundation, was sponsoring like a teacher symposium, and it was in Miami, and it was a 1-day event. And I have been fascinated with the Everglades and just learning more about Florida. I think it's a detriment. We don't really teach a lot of that in school. I've been in the public school system for 17 years as a student, and then all these years as a teacher. And I noticed we were teaching polar bears, which are very important, but animals that we don't see in our backyard. So the kids can't make that real world connection. So I've been interested in the Everglades. My husband and I went down and did an airboat ride and just kind of kept going back and exploring. And so I went to this Everglades symposium and really did not realize it was going to change the course of my whole life, because a fire lit in me to be that change in our school. They have something called Everglades Champion Schools. And they're pretty new too, as far as getting this program implemented. And a lot of their lessons and stuff align with the standards that we teach. The way the public school is now, you want everything to be aligned to the standards, right? With this curriculum, being like that, being aligned with the standards, it was easy for me to present to the school. And the vice principal, our assistant principal, has already been from a school that was an Everglades champion school. So it was easy. So I started the club this year, which was awesome because it gave me the chance to not only teach kindergarten, but to teach older kids who I haven't had a chance to work with. It's been really cool. And I've been able to open the box and bring out a lot of my camp, my Earth Pass Crew summer camp things. It is a leadership club. Our motto is leaders always serve. We read this thing before we start. It's kind of like our pledge that we will lead with integrity, that we will help, younger people. We will teach the community about what we're learning. And so it is a mentorship club, a leadership club, and it's been really awesome.
That's wonderful. So how does your club work? Do you meet after school?
Yes, we meet one day a week after school. I tried to teach them water, land, and air conservation, preservation, restoration, a lot about the Everglades, but also about just the natural Florida environment. We've done super cool things. We had a beekeeper come in. His name is Beekeeper Dan, and he brought in a hive that was enclosed. The principal was making sure that there were not going to be any bees flying around. And it was so cool. And he brought the honeycomb and honey for the kids to sample, and just gave them a really close-up look. They really learned a lot. And then we tied in a writing experience and a little craft with that, and then displayed it on the board. So that's kind of how our club works. We're training the trainers so that the kids in the club, they get trained, and then they go and train their community and their families and their peers. And then we went to a kind of a garden, but it's a turtle education right down the street from our school. So we walked down there and learned all about the turtles and their nests, and the importance of, staying away from the nests and keeping the lights off, and all of those things that are really important when you grow up in a little beach town. And then they were excited because they were going to bring their families back to that garden, which is 1 block from our school. And that really lit a fire in me too, because I started to make it my mission to go to parks that are all around us and then report back on, well, this is here and you can see this here. And just last weekend, I visited the Alligator Creek Preserve. There was this beautiful butterfly garden, and we did a professional development down there for the Everglades Club. Wouldn't you know it, you just get talking to people. And I told her that we do the butterfly life cycle, but we are always running out of milkweed. And she said, follow me. And I followed her into the back lot of the butterfly garden, and she handed me this beautiful giant milkweed that I can plant on our campus now. We will never run out of milkweed. So I just was really excited about that.
I share your enthusiasm. I love to go to local parks. I love to see all the different things that they offer, and each one has something different.
It is encouraging. We see the houses and the buildings going up, and we think it's all gone, and it's going away, but it's still there. I think we can do better, though, which is my goal. And I think that we can definitely teach this next generation to do better.
So in your club, the Everglades Club, it's about nature and preserving. Do you do anything, or are there any plans for agricultural type topics that you go through?
We teach about the 5 habitats of the Everglades and taught about the aquifers. And then we got the aquaculture system in my classroom. And that has been super cool for the kids to see the dependence between the fish and the plants. And we were also given a bucket garden. That has been awesome because, we've grown tomatoes, peppers, a couple varieties of peppers, a couple varieties of tomatoes. We've grown cabbage, beets, and kale. And the kids, when I pick it, a lot of them, ew, you're going to eat plants, you're going to eat leaves. how could you do that? I said, okay, 2-bite rule. I learned this from a nutritionist that used to visit our school. We'll do the 2-bite rule. You give me 2 bites, and if you still don't like it, that's fine, but at least you tried it. And so many of them, because they grew it, they end up loving it. And it's really cool to see. And now my students are just walking around munching on, leaves, and they love it when I cut up the tomatoes. So we were growing our tomatoes and they were doing great. And then we had a freeze and we came back and then they all got these rotten bottoms. So we had to figure out why. So we did some research there. And then the next round, they grew, but a lot of them were bitter. So we were trying to figure out, okay, what would make, a tomato bitter and what would make it, not grow to full size. And then some of our peppers wrinkled up and we have to figure out. And so they're little investigators. That brings a lot of opportunity. The garden brings a lot of opportunity for investigation and research and just figuring out how the world works, which is what I believe should be happening in schools. So it's natural, it's organic education.
Sounds like they're learning that farming isn't easy. That's true. It's not easy to do.
No.
Do you have a favorite lesson or a favorite tale to tell us that the children might have learned something that you weren't expecting or anything like that?
Yes. So one of my favorite parts about teaching is cross-curricular teaching when one thing leads to another thing. And just this past week, we started our unit on plants, but now we're on to the parts, and also we're getting into insects, pollination, stuff like that. This is my favorite time of year. This week, I gave everybody a flower. I did not tell them what to do with it. And I gave them 4 labels, which were petals, stem, leaves, and roots. And I said, all I want to know here is that you know the parts, but you can do whatever you want. And this is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen, was how each of their individual personalities came out in their work. Some of them tore the petals off and made a beautiful picture out of the petals. And then the stem became something else and the roots became something. I mean, it was just like this work of art. And they labeled each part and it was beautiful. And then some of them, I don't know how they did it. They made sculptures. Somehow they got the flower to stick onto the paper, go up, and then they labeled the parts up. And then one of my students found little pieces of paper from his desk and tore it up and put it at the bottom of the sculpture. And it was just beautiful. And then I had another student, and it kind of just shows their personality. She just took scraps of paper. She put down the parts of the plant, labeled them correctly, and then just took scraps of paper and put it over top of everything. So I could barely see the parts of the plant, but it just goes, and that's so perfectly aligned with who she is. She's just has her own mind, and just the way that they do things is so cool. So one of my other favorite lessons that we do is our Cheeto pollination. So the kids will make little bumblebees and they will put them on their fingers out of paper. So we have these paper bumblebees and we make flowers on paper, and then we put a cupcake liner in the middle and we put Cheetos in the middle of the cupcake liner. I'll say fly and the kids will buzz around, or I'll say buzz, whatever word that I use. They'll buzz around, and then I say pollinate, and then they land on the Cheetos and they get their fingers dirty, and I let them eat that Cheeto. And then I say fly, and then they fly around with Cheeto fingers. They're not allowed to lick their fingers. And then pollinate, and by the end of the experiment, they have pollen all over their fingers, and they see how they have gone around to all the different flowers, and now they understand how the bees pollinate, which then leads them to just be fascinated with bees everywhere we go, which is so good because kids are so afraid of bees naturally. And it's just so important for them to learn to love them for what they are. One of the most important things I teach my students is every living thing has a job. We have to let them do their job. So we do a lot of cute things to just make them realize that everything you see has a purpose, is important. If they love nature and if they love our state, especially, then that's how I believe that they will naturally want to protect it.
Sounds like Everglades was just kind of starting up. So you probably got some plans on where you want to go with it.
Yeah, so Everglades, we were hoping we will probably be able to be a gold school, a champion school this year. They designed keychains, which were 3D printed keychains. They've raised almost $1,000 selling those at markets. We do tables at markets just to get our name out there, to get our mission out there. The kids love it. I'm really think that kid entrepreneurship is really important. I'm seeing more kid entrepreneur markets popping up. I would like to somehow facilitate that. So they designed these keychains and they go around selling them. And I thought, oh, we'll sit at a table and we'll sell these keychains. Well, no, my fifth grade boys came walking in with this wearable, recycled box, painted. It had recycled art all over it, fish made out of water bottles, turtles made out of pipe tins. And it had holes poked in it for the keychains to hang from. And it had a strap from his baseball uniform. And they were going to wear that around and they were going to go out and get people to buy. And they made $400 on their first fundraiser. I have a little girl she's a fourth grade student, and she was one of my kindergarten students, which is super awesome that I get to work with some kids that I've had in the past. But she 3D prints flower pots at home, and then she propagates her own aloe plants. So we had an event the other day for our club, and she sold them. And I said, we could split the proceeds, or you could just, use our table. And no, she wanted to give it all back. And that's just how they are. They just want to serve, and they just want to be out there. I have this little one girl who's a kid entrepreneur. She does it also on her own, but every event she's there and she's speaking to people, and she's just so personable. And I feel like that's leadership, right? And also they're learning to talk to adults. They're learning to take money. Here we go with math. They are learning so many life skills that I would have loved to have had the opportunity, and then we went to the Rotary, and they stood up with a microphone and spoke to a room full of 40 men.
Wow.
No problem. I mean, I would have been very intimidated when I was their age. And they're so confident. And I feel like each of them has such a gift. If kids aren't exposed to these opportunities, they're never going to know if it's a gift or not. And then once they do it, they can say, oh, well, that was fun, but maybe that wasn't for me. Or maybe I'm going to spend my entire life doing this. But if they're never exposed to that, how will they know? And so I just think exposure is the key to be true future servant leaders.
Our children are really getting an advantage when they get into these programs and they have people leading them down that path. That's great.
Mm-hmm. What they really need is life skills. They really need to learn how to grow their own food. They need to learn how to care for living things. I would love to be able to see more things for the children, for their future.
I think it's really important at a young age, because we're such an immediate society. Everything is done right now, and here it is, and you want something, and pretty much Google can answer any question for you. But when you plant seeds, you have to have the patience to watch it grow. You have to water it. You have to feed it. And I think that is a lesson in itself, in that it shows that not everything that you're going to get that's worthwhile is going to be right now.
Yes, that's a really good point. One of my big inspirations is The Last Child in the Woods. It's a book. It's Richard Louv, and it is about the detrimental effects of nature deficit disorder. Kids not being outdoors. Think about all the things. I grew up in the woods in Venice, Florida. Our imaginations ran wild, but we also learned things like you're saying, like about living things and what happens, when you mess with it. Yeah, I just want to see more of that.
We love passionate teachers like you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Every time we find one, we get them on camera.
Being a Christian, the scripture, don't let them look down on you because you're young. Some people do not realize that these kids are so capable, and at such a young age, they have such good ideas. When you're in a classroom and you've got 19 5-year-olds and everybody has a big idea that day, what do? You have to teach, I have to teach you how to read. I have to teach you CVC words, and that's important. Yes. But also their ideas are important too. I really like the idea of more after school programs. Then they have a place to just dump their stress from the day into creativity. I would love to see more funding for after school programs. As I go to all of these farmers markets and all of these events, I meet of so many people who were educators, so they love children, but they all want to get back into the classroom. I have volunteers in my classroom. One is awesome. Her name's Miss St. Clair, and she was a principal and a teacher in Alaska. She found her way here. I'm so blessed to have her because she comes in and teaches my kids to read. But you should have seen her the day that Cat in the Hat, we were doing Dr. Seuss, and she said to me, "Can I please read my favorite Dr. Seuss book?" Like, yes. And she read it like she was on a stage, so happy. And to get back into that, feeling of being a teacher. And there are so many people in our community that want to get into schools and just tell the kids what they know. And so I also would love to see more programs where we connect people from the community who love kids or want to teach skills that they have.
I think it's funny when we were in school, they were forcing us to learn what computers do, what technology does, and we all had to pick it up. Now it's the opposite. They know all that like nothing, and we have to force them to learn natural things and get out in the world. But it's kind of the same thing, just in a completely opposite way, right?
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's so true. Just total pendulum.
It swung the other way. Yeah.
At the Christian school I was teaching at, I taught a few different kinds of classes. I helped with the cooking class occasionally, and then I did a crochet class and then a life skills class. And I always took them camping once a year. So I love to do outdoor things, and I love to share it with them, especially if they've never done it before, because exposure, those are the things we focused on when I was doing different classes.
And it's so great because some of those kids, that's the only chance they're ever going to get. And shameless plug for Green Gene Foundation, most of the people that work with us, that's what they do mostly. Go in the schools, expose them to aquaculture or gardens or bees or whatever. So perfectly right on for this program.
Our school is 65% free and reduced lunch. And I was going to say the same thing. They may never have the opportunity. I would love to see schools be more supportive of field trips. But to me, that's so much more of an opportunity to learn. If we were allowed, to do more of that, it would be awesome.
So Veronica, you get your last word. So whatever you'd like to let the folks know as we sign off.
I guess I'll sign off by saying the way that I sign off my emails at work, that in my opinion, children are the most valuable natural resource on the planet, and they are our greatest hope for a sustainable future.
Perfect. Well said. And that's about all the time we have for today's episode.
Share and like us and follow us again as we're growing in the knowledge about the world that feeds us.